Imposter syndrome does not mean you're unqualified. It means you're expanding into something new. Imposter syndrome doesn't ask, how can I do better or be better at this? It asks, do I even belong here? And that's the reason that we want to just abandon this mindset, because really that's the worst question that you can ask, right? That's getting at the heart of, am I good enough? And the answer is yes. Hi, I'm Chris LeBrun, your host of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. As someone who's never been afraid of dreaming big and going for it all, I often find myself with a lot on my plate. I'm a husband and father, a nonprofit fundraiser, and an entrepreneur. What I've realized is my view of productivity was pretty toxic. After decades of believing that in order to do more, you had to work harder, I began to see productivity as this beautiful thing. Holistic productivity is the idea that you can accomplish your professional, personal, and purpose-driven goals in a healthy way, and doing so will make you happier and more fulfilled. Join me each week as we break down myths about productivity, share practical tips for maximizing your time, energy, and focus, and hear from others about their productivity journey. This is the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. Hello, my friend. I hope you are doing well. Thank you so much for being here for episode number 46 of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. My name is Chris LeBrun. I'm your host. I'm a productivity coach, and I'm so grateful that you are taking time to listen to this episode. It's going to be a great episode today. Many of the episodes that I do are talking about mindsets that we want to develop to help us achieve our goals, to help us be more efficient, more productive, to help us find success a little bit easier. Well, today, we're going to take it from the other side of things. We're going to talk about it, mindset that you want to abandon, one that's holding you back from your goals, keeping you from success. So we're going to talk about that again. Just so grateful that you are here. I don't know if this is your first episode that you've listened to, or if you've been with us all the way from episode number 1, but I hope that you enjoy this episode. And if you do, would love to have you rate it on your favorite podcast platform, like, follow, subscribe, maybe leave some feedback for me, but that would be fantastic. Well, let's dive in. Have you ever had a moment where you thought, who am I to do this, to lead this, to be in this role or in this position? If you've ever felt that, then you are familiar with the topic today. We're talking about imposter syndrome. I think it's something that we've probably all suffered from at some point or time in our life. And right there, that should be some comfort to you that you're not alone. It's happened to all of us. You know, imposter syndrome does not mean you're unqualified. It means you're expanding into something new. And that's what we're going to look at today as we unpack this episode. It doesn't mean you're unqualified. It means you're expanding into something new. Maybe that's trying out for the school play or the basketball team. Maybe it's the first day on a new job, or when you get tasked to lead a new project, right? Imposter syndrome doesn't ask, how can I do better or be better at this? It asks, do I even belong here? And that's the reason that we want to just abandon this mindset, because really that's the worst question that you can ask, right? That's getting at the heart of, am I good enough? And the answer is yes. So today we're going to look at imposter syndrome, why it shows up, how it quietly sabotages our goals, and what to do when it tells you to sit down and stay small. Okay? So let's start out by defining imposter syndrome. We're going to look at what it is and what it isn't. So what is imposter syndrome? Well, it's a mismatch between growth and identity. Your skills have literally expanded faster than your self-image. This is common among thoughtful, high standards people, not frauds. I think that's important to recognize from the beginning. You're never going to see a con artist with imposter syndrome, right? So if you have it, that's a good sign that you're not a con artist, right? You're someone who is upstanding and wanting to actually make a difference in the world and not just pull something over on people. Now let's look at what imposter syndrome isn't. It isn't proof that you're not ready. It isn't a sign that you're deceiving anyone. And it isn't something that disappears before action. You can't get rid of imposter syndrome before you act. It usually fades after you take action. So the bottom line, imposter syndrome is not a character flaw. It's a side effect of growth. And so if you are experiencing it, and that's a good thing because you are growing, you are evolving, you are not staying stagnant. Let's pause here for a quick break. We'll be right back. If you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of trying every to-do list or project management app, you know how exhausting it can be. You download the app, you set it up, enter all your data, and then scramble to cancel it before the trial ends. Trust me, I've been there and it's no fun. That's why I love efficient.app. Alex and Andra, a husband and wife team, have spent over a decade testing and reviewing software of all types so you don't have to. Calendars, project management, banking, planners, email marketing, you name it, they've covered it with honest reviews and side-by-side comparisons. And they don't sugarcoat it. If a tool isn't worth your time, they tell you straight up. I've personally found their reviews super helpful when I was trying to sort through different project management apps. It saved me a ton of time and frustration. Best of all, they often have special deals on the tools they recommend so that you can save money. I'm especially grateful to efficient.app because they've been supporting the Wholistic Productivity Podcast since the very beginning. The best way to check them out and support the podcast is through the link in the show notes. So next time you're looking for software, let efficient.app do the work for you. Trust me, you will not regret it. So why do we get imposter syndrome? Well, there's several reasons that we can start to feel that we just don't measure up. Reason number one is we compare our beginning to someone else's middle. What's that saying? Comparison is the thief of joy. Imposter syndrome is a perfect example of that. We've talked about this before, measuring yourself against some future ideal or someone else's progress is always going to leave us on the short end of the stick. We talked about that in the episode on the gap and the gain, right? We're looking at the gap there. This is easy with social media when we only see part of the process. We forget how long mastery actually takes, because in the online world, timelines get collapsed and struggles aren't shared. So we just see the results of what probably has been a very long journey with ups and downs. All we see is the results. It's easy to assume that competence should feel confident, but as we said, imposter syndrome is the difference between your growth and your identity. And that lack of confidence can happen at any level, at the entry level, partway through, or at the end of your career or your expert status on a topic. Reason number two, we overestimate the credential threshold. It's easy to tell ourselves that, having some letters behind our name makes all the difference, that people would listen to us more or believe us more if we just had one more credential, if we had one more degree. Look, I'm here to tell you that I have so many credentials that I've earned in my career. It's a proverbial alphabet soup behind my name if I were to list them all, right? And I don't say that to brag. It's what it is. I have always prioritized ongoing learning and being at the top of whatever industry I'm in. But I can honestly say that I'm not sure that those were ever the definitive reason why I got hired. Did they help? Probably, sure, yeah. Again, it demonstrates my level of competence in the fundraising world, But was that the only reason that I got hired? Is because I had a bunch of letters behind my name? Probably not. But we invent these invisible requirements in order to feel good about going to the next level. If only I had more training. I just need some more experience. Maybe if somebody would validate me, or if this certificate would validate me, right? I need blank. Meanwhile, people with less credentials and experience and training are doing the very thing that you want to be credentialed to do. They're just diving in and doing that. Reason number 3 that we get imposter syndrome is we tie identity to outcomes. Now, this is huge. It's common for us to think if I fail, it only proves that I never really belonged here in the first place. But that is a false equivalency. Failure and belonging are not connected, especially when failure is one of the best teachers that we can possibly have. When we think like this, it makes starting out on our journey this existential gymnastics routine to try to get through, right? Now, I grew up in Boston. I've been a huge Patriots fan my entire life. And if you were to say, because Tom Brady lost 3 Super Bowls, he never belonged in the NFL, you're dismissing his 7 Super Bowl rings, right? Now, we don't like to talk about the last one. We only like to acknowledge the first 6, but I digress, right? But you get the idea. If you just look at the failures, you're missing out on an amazing career that is probably the best ever. Look at your favorite actor. They have starred in some movies that were bombs, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be a Hollywood actor. If we don't hold actors and athletes to this standard, why do we judge ourselves this way? Why do we put all of that extra burden on ourselves? If you've ever struggled with imposter syndrome, believe me, you are not alone. It's something that I've struggled with personally. You know, when I first started calling myself a productivity coach, it felt uncomfortable, almost a little bit dishonest. I mean, I wasn't coaching Fortune 500 executives. I wasn't training Olympians of productivity. And in my head, I had this unspoken rule that real coaches coach the best of the best. And then I realized something that changed everything for me. Again, to keep the sports analogy going, there are coaches at every single level, from youth coaches to high school coaches to college coaches and all the way on up through professional, multiple levels of professional, right? But here's the thing, they are all coaches. None of them are pretending. They're coaching the people that are in front of them. When I started out coaching, did I have room to grow? Absolutely. Do I still have room to grow now? Yes, of course I do. But growth doesn't disqualify you. It's part of the job. See, I wasn't an imposter. It was just early in the journey, and that's okay. I may not be coaching Fortune 500 CEOs just yet. Notice I said yet. But the people I am coaching need me to show up for them and their goals just the same. I still can help people achieve the things that they want to achieve. And that's what I do anytime I'm coaching somebody. When we allow imposter syndrome to creep in, we sabotage our goals, and we also sabotage the thing that we were meant to do. Now, this isn't always a dramatic stop. It usually slows us down quietly. We over-prepare and we never launch. We delay our decisions while we wait for confidence to show up and give us that push that we need. Or we downplay our work so no one expects that much from us. Man, does that sound like something you've done? I'm guilty of that. We say someday instead of choosing a date to have that thing launched or done or put out there into the world. You know, imposter syndrome never says, don't do this. It says, do it later. And later quietly becomes never. Let's pause here for a quick break. We'll be right back. Living with pain is no fun at all. Whether it's sore muscles from a workout, nagging joints, or even stress that just won't leave you alone. That's why I love Little Golden Shepherd. They make all natural butters from organic herbs and essential oils, formulated to ease pain, reduce stress, and even soothe sensitive skin. I use the muscle butter after tough workouts, and the joint butter is perfect for my knees, which somehow were bad even when I was a kid. I'm so grateful to have Little Golden Shepherd sponsoring the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. The way they support the show is super simple. Every time you shop through the link in the show notes, a portion of your order helps keep this podcast going. And here's the best part. If you use the promo code WHOLEPROD, you'll save 15% on your first order. That's promo code WHOLEPROD, WHOLPROD. Try Little Golden Shepherd today. You're going to love it as much as I do, and your muscles will too. So, what are some practical tools that we can use to deal with imposter syndrome? Well, tool number one is name the voice and don't obey it. Remind yourself, this is imposter syndrome talking, and I'm not going to listen to it anymore. Labeling it creates a distance. It lets us see it for what it is. You don't have to argue with imposter syndrome. You just have to recognize it and don't pay any attention to it. Now, I'll be honest, this takes time. This takes practice. You're not going to be able to name it the first time and then you'll be rid of it forever, right? You're going to need to keep acknowledging it over and over again and constantly make sure that you are letting it sit over there on the side and don't listen to what it has to tell you. Tool number two, stop asking yourself, am I qualified enough? Instead, ask yourself, who could I help right now, where I'm at? Now, this shifts the focus from identity to service. When I was launching this podcast, I focused on the who that I could reach rather than the who I couldn't reach right now. That was important. I had to look for and recognize that there were people out there who needed what I had to offer. They need to be able to achieve their goals, to find happiness and fulfillment and satisfaction, and then they can go out and make an impact in the world because of the coaching that they got from me. So that was huge for me at that point. Tool number three, borrow the right time horizon. Now, what do I mean by that? Ask yourself, would I expect myself to be an expert at this thing in 5 or 10 years? If the answer is yes, that makes being imperfect today a very logical thing, right? If you're going to be an expert in 5 to 10 years, that means by default that you are not an expert today. And that's okay. That's not shameful, right? You've already said expert level is 5 to 10 years off. So I'm growing today. But here's the catch. You're never going to reach expert level in 5 to 10 years unless you start today. I recently wrote a blog that talked about this where I proposed this simple statement. Tomorrow's success requires today's commitment. Let me say that again. Tomorrow's success requires today's commitment. I'll put a link in the show notes if you want to read the whole article, but that lets us move forward today at where we are so that tomorrow we can be that expert. Tool number 4, act small, but act in public. It's important when you have imposter syndrome to take one visible step towards your goal. Even if you don't feel ready, publish that article or podcast episode. Invite a colleague to review your idea. Share your masterpiece with the world. I said this at the beginning, but we can't get rid of imposter syndrome before we act. Confidence follows evidence, not the other way around. You don't overcome imposter syndrome by thinking or wishing or sitting there. You overcome it by acting. In fact, thinking is probably what created the imposter syndrome in the first place, right? Overcoming imposter syndrome is about reclaiming forward momentum. I want to be very clear when I say this. Imposter syndrome is not a sign that you should stop going after your goals. It's often a sign that you are standing on the edge of something that matters. You don't need to feel ready to take the next step. You just need to be willing to take it imperfectly. So let's recap what we talked about today. Imposter syndrome is a mindset that we need to abandon. We need to get rid of it. And it doesn't mean that you're unqualified. It means that you are growing. If you don't take anything else from this episode today, please hear this and take it to heart. We talked about how imposter syndrome often comes from comparing ourselves to people that are further down the road, setting these invisible standards for ourselves and assuming that confidence should come before action. Remember, if left unchecked, imposter syndrome doesn't stop us outright. It just keeps us delaying, overthinking, and playing smaller than we need to or we should. So when imposter syndrome shows up, name it instead of believing it. Shift the question from am I qualified to who can this help right now? And take one small visible step forward, even if confidence hasn't caught up. You don't have to feel ready to move forward. You just have to be willing to move forward at the place and time where you are. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate imposter syndrome. It's to stop letting it make your decisions for you. So let me ask this as we wrap up today. What is one goal that you have been delaying, not because you couldn't do it, not because it was too big of a goal, but because you're questioning whether or not you should? And I think the answer to that question is always yes. Of course you should. This is what holistic productivity is all about. Progress in every area of your life without waiting to feel like you've arrived. You need to keep going. You need to keep pushing towards your goals, even when you feel like you aren't prepared, you aren't ready, because in doing that, that is how you will find success. Well, that is it for the show today. Thank you so much for being here. Like I said, check out the show notes. We'll have links there to all the stuff that we've talked about. You can find those at holisticproductivity.com/46. Make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. You can watch the show there. And that way, when you like, subscribe, follow, you will not miss a single episode. Also, if you liked the show and found it valuable, again, I would love to see you rate the show. I love seeing 5 stars. That would just absolutely make my day. And it lets other people know that this is a quality podcast, that they should listen in and give it a try. Make sure you follow at Wholistic Productivity on all of the social media, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, YouTube, Substack. Make sure that you are there. I put out a lot of great productivity tips and motivation throughout the week. You're going to want to hear that and see that. So make sure you do that. And I've talked about the Holistic Productivity community on School. This is amazing. You need to check it out. We are always focusing on helping each other be more productive in every area of life. There's lots of great resources. It's growing every week. And best news is it's free. So make sure you check that out. Link will be in the show notes. Again, thank you so much for listening. As always, my goal is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. And I can't wait to see all of the great things that you are going to accomplish when you stop letting imposter syndrome keep you from those big dreams that you need to accomplish to live fully. So look forward to seeing you here next time. Take care. Thanks so much.